To me, there's a design renaissance that's coming out of COVID.
Hi everyone, good morning. What's going on? Another sustainability talk with NNN. And then today we have a friend of mine, great designer, Rob Price.
I'm a fashion accessories designer and a product designer. I live in Brooklyn and work in New York City. I worked for a brand named Coach for a number of years, growing their men's design business, primarily in accessories, and then went over to Michael Kors for a few years and designed accessories for Michael Kors. And now I am on my own and designing some really interesting products in the sustainability space and also playing with innovative materials.
Tell us what you are doing now. What does it mean for a designer designing in sustainability? And what's this approach? What is about? People doesn't know about this. And how can a designer make conscious choice?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Nicola, and thank you for asking. Because for me, it's comes down to two parts. And one is to design products that really stand the test of time. And to me, that's the first thought of sustainability. Sometimes people design things to sort of turn and turn and turn, but to design a product that is timeless is the first goal, I would say, of a designer, to make things that last, that are made with quality, with materials, and to think about that on all aspects of the product. The second element is really looking at the process and how within the design process you could be better and do things in new and unique ways. And that comes down to using interesting materials. Sometimes it comes to a manufacturing process. Sometimes it comes down to being more ethical in how it is shipped or packaging, or there's so many variables in the sustainability world. But I do think as a designer, to understand this holistic vision of how a product goes from inception to execution, it allows you to make responsible choices as you're designing products and think about all those different things in terms of packaging, in terms of how big pieces of material you use and what that means for designing a handbag. For example, if you're using leather, you have to sometimes cut the leather in order to get the certain parts that work. So you have to be aware of some of those constraints of manufacturing, of production.
When you say you try to find interesting material, alternative material, innovative material, what does that mean when we think about sustainability?
There's a challenge where people think about sustainability as just the one material that they're using in their products. Like, oh, I'm using recycled plastic fabric, or I'm using a biodegradable material. But when you design something, there's so many components, right? It's like you go to Chipotle and you get the burrito, and you have to, you get the tortilla, you get the beans, you get the rice, and Niccolo, I guess I don't know if they have Chipotles by you, but I think you get the idea that it's all these different components. So you have to think about all those pieces, and we can look at innovation in terms of technology. Like 3D printing, for example, is a wonderful technology that allows us to hit smaller minimums of making something. So sometimes when you have something mass produced, you have to hit hundreds of thousands of units, where if you use some new technologies on the manufacturing side, you're able to sort of go around and really be much more targeted in terms of like how much you actually need or want to make.
Tell us a little bit about 3D printing in handbag designing.
In the beginning of my career, I started off playing a lot with 3D printing and 3D design because I was designing more actual products, home goods, kitchen products, and things that were more physical. And the technology was much more printing things out of a plastic, or sometimes you could print it out of a metal. But the technology has evolved in such incredible ways that now you could print rubber-like materials, you could 3D print fabrics, yarns, and different things. And you have the ability to actually create these designs in a three-dimensional space and save a lot of time in terms of prototyping and able to look at things in a faster, more effective way. That dialogue that happens between designing three-dimensionally and actually getting physical products saves a lot of work and saves a lot of challenges.
And do you think this can be the next step of cutting down produce and market sample? Because, the numbers of produce that we do every day just to see something made up create waste.
I 100% think so. I think the technology has always been challenging, especially in fashion and clothing, because 3D printing has always usually been with hard things. So it's easier to make a computer mouse or to make a pair of sneakers. But once you start getting into these things that drape or a leather that has some body and volume, it becomes more challenging. But I don't think it eliminates the opportunity to make physical things, because I think there's always a balance of understanding how these materials, especially organic materials, behave in very different ways than synthetic materials. So I think it's all about having a really well-rounded tools and ways of working that allow you to be as successful and thoughtful in terms of how you design.
For example, in terms of material, Nicolo touched a little bit about this, but we will have a call with a mushroom company out of Holland, and there is a lot of things. We will have a call also with an Italian guy that make apple leather, or and many other people that is
Apple skin, Nico. We cannot call it anymore apple
I'm
leather.
sorry. I just changed the law. It's called apple skin. Do you think leather is still your preferred material to be used, or you are inclined to explore and try new things and see the approach, a new approach of it?
I think now more so than ever is a time to try new approaches. With the COVID, the pandemic, there's been a reset that's been hit on how things are created and made. And it's an opportunity for all of us to think differently in terms of how we look at things on a cultural side, in terms of how we look at things, in terms of how much value they add into the world that we make. So to me, there's a design renaissance that's coming out of COVID, where people are creating new and unique things that answer this future it's going to be very different than 2019. So it's a time we could really experiment, explore new and unique materials. But at the same time, I think leather itself, it's historically a byproduct of the beef industry. So leather, you're upcycling by using leather in general, and it's an age-old material that has a lot of incredible properties in terms of its strength, its durability, and just how there's a human connection to that, this sort of skin elements. As we evolve and be more innovative, there's always an understanding of what's worked in the past, and it's balancing that. It's that new and nostalgia, and how do you sort of try out new things to be more innovative, but then look at what's always worked and what things are timeless, and mixing that into your next designs.
How is the design and the approach of the season changing in this situation right now?
Right now, there is a big pause on how things are evolving, and I don't know how much fashion shopping you guys have been doing over the last 6 months, but my shopping habits have changed dramatically. And I think what it's forced all of us to do is think about those things that are essentials, those things that bring us joy in our life, and those things that actually make a difference.
I'm getting more and more a functional guy instead of fashion.
Right.
You buy things that now in this pandemic, you buy things that you need.
The second you go all new, it's too futuristic or sci-fi. And the second you go to heritage, it feels like something from a museum. So I think you always have to take and move and evolve and push things to the next level.
You have a big experience in the university. You work a lot with university here in New York, and you have the feeling, and you know how they approach sustainability in the courses and what they think about that. Tell us a little bit about this, because it's really interesting to see how education is following this. It's a They're trendsetter or they're followers?
I had the great opportunity of working with some of the New York City design schools during the pandemic, and really being there as a mentor, but also myself being mentored from the way that these younger designers and creators and thought leaders, they're reimagining how the future is, and they're pioneering a new way of creating that incorporates all these incredible aspects of sustainability, not as a label that you put on after the product's done and say, oh, this is stamped and is sustainable, but actually integrating it into why things are even made, and looking at things just on a deeper level. And I think that's actually probably come from how the technology is so intuitive for them. Like, they grew up using these apps and these programs that are evolving so quickly and getting better and better and better. So they actually look at the world through this lens of, oh, is this really intuitive and adding value, and how is it evolving? Rather than us older people, where we're like, oh, this is how
Don't
it's
say
always
that.
been.
Don't say that. Not for me. Not for me.
I'm kidding, but no, I think there's much more of an understanding, and I think that they grew up in a world where you can make change. There's not so many hurdles in terms of, you could start a website, you could have an Instagram, you could open a YouTube business and instantly grow, and that's huge.
This is the same experience, even if we are older. This is the same experience that me and Nicola we are experiencing. We came together. We say we need to talk about sustainability. What does it mean, sustainability? Let's bring our friends over and just share moments. Because of COVID, we are more home because of many reasons. But now it was a good timing, and there's a lot of people that are standing behind me that they just want to know about this. They just want to talk about this. So the power of technology, I totally agree with you. It's really, really just changing the approach.
There is always discussion about, are the big brand gonna be stronger? Are the small brand, or is the good time for the small brand to be there? And I think right now is coming even more this topic. This is the time of the small brand, because they can control much better the sustainability and what they do, their supply chain. From your point of view, from your experience, and from the design point of view, how do you see this in the coming future?
The answer is almost in the question in a lot of regards, but the old way of doing things was really about volume. And because of manufacturing prices and how things were always done, the supply chain dictated how many of something we had to make. And it's a very institutional system. We almost designed everything else around having to mass produce hundreds of thousands of things. So we created a retail system that would discount and discount and discount. So we're able to sell off all of those goods. And then we created marketing and sort of an old-fashioned way of telling the customers that this is what they have to buy. Now the customers, they get to buy whatever they want. They have the power. They're on their social media channels and they're saying, this is what I want, and this is what I identify with. This is unique and special to me. And they can go out and get it. And I think there's brands that are really answering that. And I think they're born out of this tech digital space where there isn't any constraints in sort of the development of these items. So I think, how do we start to bring some of those processes from some of these digital spaces into how we develop physical products? And some of these smaller brands are doing that and really creating this hybrid of not just e-commerce and brick and mortar, but I'm talking about digital products and physical products. I'm talking about user experience and physical experience. I think all of those things, the lines are starting to blur and it's not so black and white. I'd like to close it with an ending thought. So now what's more important than ever is creative collaboration with all these individuals across the world that are doing new and unique things, and working and supporting and partnering and allowing everyone to grow to their highest and full potential. And to me, it really comes down to that level of collaboration and supporting new and emerging brands that are doing things, buying things that truly add value into our lives. And how do we as creators create better things, and as consumers, make the vote for what values we support.
Thank you, Rob. It was amazing to have you on board, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Wonderful meeting you, Nicolo, and Nicolo, as always. Love seeing you.